Hello, this is Mahendra Didia. This is the fourth submodule in this sequence on formulation and composition of emulsions. In this submodule, we will look at double emulsions or emulsion of an emulsion. Emulsion of an emulsion concept is unique in the sense that emulsion of oil and water is emulsified again into oil, water, and oil. Similarly, emulsion of water and oil is emulsified again into water, oil, and water. Interface of double emulsion contains surfactants that work on inner portion of it, in case shown here, water and oil, and then external phase, oil and water. Let's look at a little bit more detail into water, oil, and water emulsion. Water, oil, and water emulsion has an emulsion of water and oil that's again emulsified into a continuous phase, as shown here. This is a water and oil emulsion containing water droplets or water as a globule phase, and then entire emulsion is re-emulsified or double emulsified into a continuous phase, in this case water. Water X1 or core is as internal or inner aqueous phase is sometimes referred as X1, and in this case X1 water is dispersed into a oil phase, and this is sometimes referred as a shell, or it's called encapsulated phase. This is emulsified again into a continuous phase of water. The surfactant used in water and oil portion of the water, oil, and water emulsion are lipophilic with HLB of generally less than 8, and it can be dissolved in either an oil phase or internal. The emulsifier or surfactants used in inner water and oil have HLB of less than 8, and they can be dissolved either into water or oil phase. This emulsion is then emulsified in the continuous phase of water. The surfactant here have HLB of greater than 12, and generally they are dissolved in the aqueous phase. The photograph here shows actual emulsion of water, oil, and water. And one can see that in the inner core phase, there are multiple water globules, and they come in different sizes. Let's look at oil, water, and oil, double emulsion. In this case, oil and water is emulsified first, and then it's incorporated into a continuous phase of oil. So inner oil X1 phase is dispersed into water globules or a shell. This oil and water emulsion is submicron size. Oil and water emulsion then is again emulsified into an external phase of oil. This external oil phase is a continuous oil phase, as shown in the figure or a photomicro, as shown in the photomicrograph on my right hand side. The emulsifiers for oil and water are hydrophilic with HLB of greater than 12 and can be dissolved in either water or X1 oil phase. Oil, water, and oil emulsifiers or surfactant are lipophilic in nature, i.e., HLB is less than 8, and are generally dissolved in external continuous oil phase, which is shown here as a dark, which is shown here as a dark, which is shown here in a continuous phase. There's a couple of ways to make oil, water, and oil, or water, oil, and water double emulsions. The double emulsions are influenced by the process itself and the composition. Critically, the emulsifier and surfactant, their concentration, and also the osmolality of water and oil, i.e., inner globules itself, ratio of the emulsifiers, and physicochemical properties such as the globule size, both initial globule size of water and water and oil portion of it, viscosity, phase volume ratios, and conductivity. In two-step process, first emulsion is X1 water, internal water into oil. In the figure here, PGPR with HLB of about 3.5 and oil are dispersed into inner water phase with a high mechanical agitation, and it forms W1 oil emulsion as shown here. The second step of the process is to use this emulsion shown here W2 W1. Second step of the process is to take this emulsion itself W1O and emulsify into an aqueous solution W2 with an emulsifier, in this case 20. Mechanical agitation generally slightly lower or slightly slower so that internal emulsion does not break. Once W1O and W2 with emulsifiers are mixed, it forms W1OW2 or water, oil, and water emulsion. This is a common process. Similarly, oil, water, and oil water emulsions are made first. That's followed by a second emulsion of the first emulsion into X2 oil to form water, oil, and water emulsion. A second method is a continuous flow method. Unlike previous method, which can incorporate multiple water or oil inside the shell, this process is a second process is a continuous flow process. In two-step process, one can get multiple inner core material, such as either water and oil, incorporated into a shell. In this process, a single water core is injected into a oil stream and it forms X1 water and oil emulsion. This emulsion itself with very This emulsion is then injected into external X2 water phase and produces emulsion. In this case, the outer emulsion is formed and inner emulsion contains one water phase and not multiple globules. Shown here in the bottom, water drop, oil outside is pushed through an orifice and oil surrounds the water molecule, and then water and oil emulsion is formed. This emulsion then is double emulsified in a stream of water that's coming in. And depending on the orifice, one can get the globule size. In this video, we'll show how microfluidic systems work. You will see three different types of emulsions. One on the top with a smaller internal X1 water phase, medium-sized water phase in the middle, and a large water phase in this video. You will see three different types of emulsion. One on the top will show small water globule formed in an oil system, which then is emulsified into an outer water layer. The second one shows the medium-sized water globules surrounded by a shell of oil, and that's emulsified. And the third one will show a large water globule with a very defined oil shell, again dispersed into a final water or external water. Let's look at the example of water, oil, and water double emulsion for a caffeine as a drug, a model drug. In this case, emulsifiers are dimethicone, Abel EM90. Structure is shown here with dimethicone structure and a long. In this case, emulsifier is dimethicone derivative, Abel EM30, and structure is shown here on right hand side with a dimethicone chain and a alkane chain. The second emulsifier used in water, oil, and water is poloxamine 908. That has a very high HLB of 31. And these are amine block copolymers. And they have a very high HLB of 31, i.e. they favor formation of oil in water emulsion. The oil shell is liquid paraffin, 30%, and emulsifier Abel EM90. The internal aqueous phase is water, drug, and sodium chloride. Sodium chloride is used as an osmotic agent to make sure that the osmotic pressure inside the inner shell is balanced with an outside water phase. So this is emulsified first by adding water into oil phase. The emulsion that's formed is water and oil. This emulsion is now taken as a primary water and oil emulsion. It is emulsified in an external aqueous phase containing water and poloxamine 908 as a two-step process. Appendix at the end of the module has some of the common emulsifier with different HLBs used in double emulsions. The two-step process here, in this case, experimental design contained inner two-step process here on lab scale. Two-step process at lab scale has an experimental design in which two-step process at lab scale has an experimental design in which water and oil emulsifier APO EM90 at two different concentration was used, and poloxamine, the external water oil water emulsifier at 1, 2, and 4% was used. Process included paraffin. The process, the laboratory process in which paraffin is heated to 75 degrees and the emulsifier either at 2% or 4% is mixed. Oil phase is prepared separately. Aqueous phase is separately prepared in which caffeine drug, sodium chloride, and water are mixed together. And water and emulsion, aqueous phase of the inner emulsion is made by mixing water, drug, and sodium chloride at 75 degrees. And this aqueous phase is added into the oil phase to generate water and oil emulsion. Water and oil emulsion is then cooled to room temperature and confirm its characteristics, i.e., it is indeed water and oil emulsion and it's stable. Step 2 of the process is freshly prepared water and oil emulsion is added to the aqueous phase X2 dissolved with emulsifier. In this case, experiment was done at 3 different concentrations. The mixing speed is slower than the step 1 to avoid breaking up of multiple globules. And mixing is stopped after violent. Mixing speed here is mixing speed for the step 2 is slower to avoid breaking up of the globules that are prepared in step 1. The experimental design shows that viscosity as well as globule size are affected by the concentration of surfactant. Conductivity indicating the leakage of water from inside to outside is shown here. And viscosity is also a function of mixing speed. Let's look at oil, water, and oil double emulsion of retinol. In this case, oil and water and oil emulsions were also made to compare to oil, water, and oil emulsion. And encapsulation efficiency was calculated by the total amount of retinol, which is a vitamin A, inside the inner oil phase and leaching of that into an outside oil phase. Inner oil phase was liquid paraffin and drug. Water phase is shown here, containing water phase composition is shown here, containing methyl paraben, glycerin, and water. The outer oil phase is again liquid paraffin and surfactant MLX DIS, and drug itself is not used. The outer oil phase is liquid paraffin and MLX 600 DI as an emulsifier. And this oil, water, and oil does not contain any drug. Stability of retinol after 50 degrees. The stability of retinol at 50 degrees after 4 weeks was measured in both oil and water emulsion, water and oil emulsion run as a control, and oil, water, and oil emulsion. This two-step process involves, first step is to prepare oil and water emulsion. Liquid paraffin in which retinol vitamin A is dissolved and emulsified with HCO 60, which is PEG 60 hydrogenated castor oil emulsifier with its HLB of 14. Second step is to take this emulsion, oil and water emulsion, and emulsify in a continuous phase of oil. In this case, Benton 38 or V gums were used to increase the viscosity, and lipophilic and lipophilic emulsifier MLX 600, PEG diastereomers, and lipophilic emulsifier PEG 16 diisostearate with an HLB of 8 were used. So in two steps, emulsion is prepared, oil and water first. This emulsion is characterized, and then it's emulsified again. The oil, water, and oil emulsion contain oil, water, and oil emulsion prepared according to the formula shown was further studied to see the effect of antioxidant on retinol stability. Control, BHT, sodium ascorbate, NEDTA, and mixtures of above were evaluated. The emulsion photograph is shown on the right hand side. Shows a globule containing an oil phase. This is a water globule containing an oil phase, and that's dispersed in a continuous oil phase. So, and the globules are of different size, and they contain different oil globules within the water phase itself. The data shows that retinol stability is affected by type of antioxidants used. EDTA does not really help with the stability of retinol to significant level. Sodium ascorbate is shown to be more effective. Also, the mixture of BHT, sodium ascorbate, and EDTA is also effective in stabilizing retinol. Ratio of inner oil phase was also studied. Inner oil phase of oil, water, and oil emulsion, in this case, internal oil phase, was compared to a control oil and water emulsion. Again, stability of retinol at around 0.4, fraction of 0.4 or 40%. Stability of retinol at around 40% fraction or 0.4 shows the stability of retinol at inner oil fractions shows significant improvement at 0.4%. Stability of retinol shows significant improvement when the fraction is 0.4. Encapsulation efficiency, that is, retinol remaining in the inner oil phase, also is affected by the fraction of oil in encapsulate. The amount of retinol remaining in the oil phase, the amount of retinol remaining in the inside of the oil phase is shown here, and it's also compared to oil and water. Amount of retinol in the inner oil phase to the total amount of oil, water, and oil, i.e. the retinol that's leaching out, and the amount of retinol in inner oil phase as compared to the total amount of retinol in the oil, internal and oil external, i.e. the one that has leached out, was studied at time 0 and after 2 weeks at different inner oil phase ratio. As the inner oil phase ratio increased, the amount of retinol also increased. However, at 50 degrees after 2 weeks, the migration of internal retinol to the outer layer was observed when the ratio increased from 0.4 to 0.5. So these studies show that internal oil phase ratio, the type of surfactants used, have tremendous impact on stability of active as well as encapsulation efficiency. Double emulsion interface physical stability. It's a major concern because of the preparation is using double emulsion. Interface stability is a major concern. The mechanism by double emulsion's interface physical instability is a major challenge for formulations. Double emulsion prepared by 2 steps may contain more than one globule, in this case, water and oil, and water, water, oil, and water is shown as an example. Water inside the oil shell can coalesce to a larger droplet. It may still remain as an emulsion. However, eventually it may create an issue. Water globules inside the oil phase of WOW emulsion may coalesce. Water may be expelled out from the inner oil phase. Water inside the oil phase may flocculate and collect together. Inner portion of the water starts diffusing inside the oil phase, and the internal globules increase in size. Water from inner globule phase can diffuse out, and internal globules starts reducing in their particle size. So if the drug is incorporated, if the drug is incorporated in the double emulsion, drug may prematurely release and become unstable. Whereas the molecule shown in double emulsion incorporate drug within the interface may prematurely release and become unstable. Efficient capsules will prevent the drug and also the inner globules from coalescing or releasing. So water does not, even if water exists, even if water were to exit, emulsion characteristics will still remain and drug will not release. In addition to that, electrolytes used in double emulsions have to be carefully selected. Electrolytes may attract the particle itself. In the case shown here, starting with this emulsion, with electrolytes, the inner globule starts growing and smaller at the expense of smaller globules. Electrolytes starts migrating and creating a large inner globule, which eventually breaks apart. These issues are very challenging and requires careful study of emulsifiers, particle size or globule size, and stability of inner emulsion.